The Incredible Hulk is the second film in the MCU. It also, just like Iron Man, came out in 2008, and it is the second film in my MCU film series of reviews that I'm doing leading up to Infinity War, which comes out in April 27th. I am going to be doing some mild spoilers for this movie. You have been warned. The movie came out 10 years ago, so you've had plenty of time to see the movie, but if somehow you haven't seen The Incredible Hulk yet and you don't want to know anything about the movie, you should go back, watch The Incredible Hulk, and then come back and watch this video. Like the first Iron Man, it's really hard to imagine that this movie came out 10 years ago. Before this, the only solo Hulk movie that we had seen was the 2003 version, I think directed by Ang Lee, and that one starred Eric Bana as the title character of Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk. This time around, you've got Edward Norton starring as the Hulk, you've got Liv Tyler as Betty Ross. Her father's name in this movie, Thunderbolt Ross, is played by John Hurt, or William Hurt, or something like that. I can't remember his name, I just know that Hurt was his last name. And in this film, I guess, which is kind of like a loose sequel to the events of the first movie, I don't think it's confirmed anywhere, but it still feels like a spiritual sequel to that first movie. Montage at the beginning of the movie that shows how Bruce kind of got his gamma radiation powers and stuff, and how he developed the ability to turn into the Hulk. And in this film, once it starts off, he is on the run. He is hiding, he has become a fugitive, and the general and the rest of the military are hunting him down. Bruce has settled down in this obscure place somewhere in Brazil, I guess, and he works at some factory, some soda factory or some shit, and he's corresponding with somebody stateside, and that somebody's supposed to be trying to help him find a cure. The biggest plot point of this movie is that Bruce he's trying to get rid of the Hulk. He doesn't obviously want to deal with the Hulk and everything that the Hulk is, so he's trying to find a cure. That's really the basis of the plot of this thing. And like I said, General Ross is hunting after him, and he enlists the help of Tim Roth, who plays some general, I can't remember his name in the movie. He's on the hunt for him, and so we have a action thriller Hulk movie. The 2003 Hulk movie I don't think was bad, I just didn't really like it as much as I wanted to. And that movie took much more of a methodical approach to Hulk. It really wasn't an action movie. It had a little bit more story, character, substance, you know, all the things that we should like. Granted, I don't think the execution for that movie was all that great, and there are things that I have a problem with, but I don't think that movie's awful. I just don't think it's that good. But here we have in 2008 a brand new Hulk movie with a brand new actor, and they decided, okay, we're going to cut out all the methodical shit. We're just going to give you a straight up, bare to the bones Hulk action thriller. I would say for the most part they succeeded. They cut out all the fat, they trimmed down the filler, and they just gave it to you straight. Hulk as an action movie where we get to see the Hulk doing Hulk shit and destroying shit and crushing things and saying Hulk smash in a finale. We didn't get a whole ton of that in 2003. I understand that audiences wanted that, and honestly, for the time that this movie came out in 2008, when Marvel is trying to establish a new cinematic universe, it made sense for them to go this route because it's the most accessible and the most people would like this movie. Granted, it didn't really help this movie out at the box office. This movie flamed out. I mean, it did horrible as far as I can see. Still, that doesn't mean that the attempt wasn't there. That doesn't mean you can't respect the sincerity. You bring a guy like Edward Norton into this movie. Edward Norton, I really liked his performance in The Incredible Hulk. The best thing about Edward Norton in this movie is that he feels small. Bruce Banner is like a perfect antithesis of him. He's like the complete opposite of him. It's really a Jekyll and Hyde type of deal. Bruce Banner in this movie, played by Edward Norton, is very smart, but he's also very quiet. He's very subdued, but at the same time, he feels small. He feels a little bit frail. That's a really great contrast to the big, huge, ugly, green rage monster that is the Hulk. It's good that Bruce feels small. He feels frail. He feels like, you know, down-to-earth kind of guy, as opposed to this larger-than-life beast that he becomes whenever he gets angry. I thought it was really cool seeing him in Brazil in the early parts of the movie trying to figure out ways to keep his pulse down, calm himself down. He's working with some belly dance guy, and this guy is teaching him how to control his breathing. Whenever he runs really fast in this movie, or whenever he gets into trouble, or whenever his adrenaline starts spiking, you see him try these same breathing techniques. And I thought, that's pretty cool. We get to see him actually trying to survive and live with the Hulk. Even while he's trying to live with the Hulk, he's trying to get rid of the Hulk. And then we get into his correspondence with Mr. Blue back home, and it's pretty clear that he's trying to get rid of this guy. It makes sense because Hulk and Bruce Banner are a tortured pair, and they really did a great job in this movie at focusing on how tortured Bruce Banner is being the Hulk. There's a whole bunch of reasons why the Hulk makes his life a living hell and why he no longer wants to put up with that. Putting aside the fact that he had to give up Betty, he had to leave that life behind, he can't even have sex. There's a scene later on in the movie where he hooks back up with Betty when he gets back into the States, and then, like, they're on the run. She's trying to have sex with him in the hotel room. I'm like, all right, Bruce is about to score. And then his pulse watch starts speeding up, and he's kind of like, no, I can't get too excited. We can't do this. It's kind of like, damn, you can't even, the Hulk is stopping you from having sex. That's something, I'll be honest, I haven't read all of the Hulk comics, but that's something that is kind of foreign to me, honestly. Hey, it just seems like a really screwy situation. The guy is angry all the time, and the guy can't bang. I mean, who wants to live that life? I mean, seriously, I'd be like, hey, okay, well, we can't fuck, but can you at least suck my dick? Something? something, anything, just give me some top. Granted, that probably would have pushed this movie from PG-13 into a hard R if she's sucking his dick and then all of a sudden it transforms into like a 15-foot behemoth. But still, I'm just saying it's what I would have suggested if I were in the same situation. The cast does a pretty serviceable job here. Liv Tyler is the one casting choice that I'm kind of like, don't know if they nailed that one. For the record, I kind of like Liv Tyler as an actress. I think she was great in the Lord of the Rings movies. Here, I don't know that she really felt like a good Betty Ross. She has fine enough chemistry with Bruce, I guess. I guess that's not my issue, but her whole I have to whisper no matter what the situation, no matter what the cost of my voice, I have to whisper in every scene that I'm in, kind of got on my nerves after a while. I mean, there are constant scenes in the movie where she's chasing after Bruce or looking for Bruce, and she's just kind of like, unless she's like screaming, unless it's like a really big, loud scream, she talks in a really low, whisper-like voice. Bruce, I missed you. I missed you. Fuck my face, Bruce. Point is, I just don't know if they nailed that casting choice. I also don't know if they nailed the casting choice of Tim Roth. Though I will say Tim Roth as the villain Abomination, we all know that the movie's building up to a huge fight between Hulk and Abomination in the third act. I really can't put my issues with Abomination on Tim Roth. I think Tim Roth was doing the best that he could with what he was given with. The problem in this movie is he really wasn't given that much to work with. Badass when he's Abomination, sure, but in terms of a character, his military guy could have been anybody. He's just kind of military guy who wants to get better, who wants to get stronger, and he wants to fight the Hulk at the end of the movie because I understand that it's a straightforward action thriller and you gotta cut things like that down, but the point is there's just really nothing to his character, I don't think, in this movie that really made me feel all that invested in him. Although I will not lie, there is a scene in this movie, you know, the scene in the park where Hulk has to fight off the military, and then for some reason they say Blonsky, yeah, that's his name, Blonsky, you're up, and then he comes out and he starts flipping around and trying to dodge the Hulk, and the Hulk is pretty much bearing down on him. At the end, after it's all said and done, he walks up to the Hulk and he's talking shit, and the general's like, hey, don't do that, and then he's talking shit, he's like, is that all you've got? And the Hulk pretty much drop kicks him and his soul into the afterlife. If it weren't for those drugs he would have taken, he would have been dead, but every time I see that part when I rewatch this movie, I laugh my ass off. I'm sorry, it just looks really funny. Speaking of that big finale with Abomination, that was still pretty awesome too. I love the moment where Hulk splits a car in half, and then he takes the two parts of the car, he smashes them together, and he basically turns it into car boxing gloves. Play the PlayStation games that came along with these movies. That was really fun to see in the movie, and it was really fun to see him beat the shit out of Abomination with those car boxing gloves. In comparison to a lot of the Marvel movies that we have become familiar with nowadays, this is actually a very serious and grounded tone type of Marvel movie. It takes its story serious, it takes its character serious, it treats the situations serious enough, and the action in the movie is very serious and very intense. As far as capturing the savagery of the Hulk and everything that makes him such a ferocious OP motherfucker, I think this movie did a good job, at least a little bit better than they did in the 2003 movie. As an aside, I know that Bruce is supposed to be in love with Liv Tyler's Betty Ross or whatever, but there was this really fine-ass Brazilian chick that he was messing with in the beginning part of this movie, and I was just kind of like, yeah, you can always love Betty, but go get that. I mean, come on, go get some. Oh, yeah, that's right. You can't have fucking sex. Jesus. Outside of that, you got some really cool Easter eggs. It was great to see Lou Ferrigno show up in a cameo. That was pretty awesome. You have your weird comic book logic where you have the scene where Bruce somehow ends up in the United States of America, despite the fact that he's a fugitive, despite the fact that he has no money, despite the fact that everybody's looking for him. He somehow just shows up at Betty's university and there's no real explanation given. Little things like that, man. You just got to turn off your suspension of disbelief. It's a comic book movie. In the end, I actually think The Incredible Hulk is one of the more underrated films in Phase 1 of the MCU. Good action, it's got good drama, it takes the character and the story serious. Edward Norton plays a really good Bruce Banner because he feels frail in comparison to the Hulk. I don't think the casting and the writing for certain characters was on point though, and I think that there are certain things they could have done to handle it better. They also could have added a little bit more substance to the movie, kind of combined it a little bit with the spirit of the 2003 movie, had a little bit more going on story-wise. Those are just nitpicks, man. I really enjoyed this movie. I can't quite say that I loved it, but it doesn't mean I had to. So I'm going to put The Incredible Hulk right under greatness. I'm going to put it in the Silver Age for Man of Steel. So tell me, which one do you prefer, the 2008 or the 2003 Hulk? And compare the Bruce Banners. Come on, we got to be fair about this. I can subscribe to the Superfan Show, and as always, if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.